Welcome back to another episode from Checking From Behind You Beauties. I'm Zach, always joined by Preston, and we have a very fun episode. As you guys can see, a little bit change of set. We are working to get a much better viewing experience for you guys, so appreciate you guys, and I hope you guys enjoy the new content. But anyways, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. In August, almost time for hockey season, so we have some actual news to talk about this week. We have an action-packed episode, got a lot of notes, so I'm ready to get going.
We have 3 trades to go over. The first trade, the biggest trade of them all, Patrik Laine gets traded to the Montreal Canadiens. That one was not a shocker to me because there have been rumors that the Canadiens were in on Patrik Laine for the past couple months. Laine obviously was bound to get traded after he was not happy in Columbus. He wanted out. He requested a trade, did not want to be a part of the locker room, and Don Waddell came through and traded him, and I thought the return wasn't that bad for Jordan Harris.
Yeah, I mean, they really had no leverage in any of the trade talks, in my opinion. You know, everyone in the league knew that Laine wanted out of Columbus. You know, he publicly requested a trade. I think it was probably the best thing for his career moving forward. I feel like him and Columbus were just never a good fit. Mm-hmm. He just never really found his footing there. I don't know if maybe the coaches that were there when he got over there never really fit his style of play. They never really let him do. And he also missed a lot of time. So I think health definitely plays an interest to that. But I think this is an interesting gamble by Montreal because they did take on the full extent of his salary. Was it just about $9 million, right?
8.75 for this season and then the following season.
So they're on the hook for that full contract for the next 2 years. So Columbus is probably just happy to get out of that contract for a guy that didn't want to be there.
And all it took was a second-round pick to get rid of it, too.
And they get a decent defenseman in return.
Exactly. Montreal could have been stubborn and said, yeah, first-round pick or nothing. It's like, no, second-round pick because they needed a guy like Laine. Improves their top 6 mightily. If Laine can stay on the ice, gives them 30 to 40 goals. Like, that's great power play.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big if, though, because, you know, he hasn't really played much over the last couple of years. And, you know, he missed almost half the season this year, if not more.
He only played like 19, 20 games.
Yeah, he was on the player assistance program, had other issues. So, you know, the more important thing for Laine is I want to see him play a full 82-game season. You know, if he gets like 20 to 30 goals, I think that's a plus. But, you know, I think expecting around like 40 or higher out of his first year in Montreal is a little high.
He hasn't played a full season since 2018-19. Before that, it's been like 65 games, 60 games. He's played like a 70-game season. Obviously, you have the COVID stuff, so that you have to take that into account as well. But in Columbus, I don't think he played more than like 55 games. And in that 55 games, he was pretty much around a point per game. So he still has the potential in the world. He still has the potential to be in his prime.
No, he's still a great player. It's just he's got to stay on the ice.
There's a lot of what-ifs with this. And with Montreal, you're not giving up a ton of assets for a guy like this, especially because
you give up a decent defenseman. He's like not a
24-year-old defenseman who's going to play.
He's like a good third line minutes, but and you get a second in the pick. So, I mean, but with Laine, if he doesn't end up working out, I mean, you're on the hook for a big hit. But I think the potential upside, I think, far outweighs the negatives.
Oh, for sure. And the top 6 for Montreal is going to be nuts. You have Slavkovsky, you have Caulfield, you have Suzuki, and then also you have Patrik Laine per daily faceoff playing with Kirby Dach and Alex Newhook.
Yeah, Kirby Dach is coming back this year.
I am excited because it sucks for Kirby Dach because I think the last couple of seasons.
Did he even play really at all last year?
He played.
He tore his ACL, right?
I know that. I don't know if he did it in the regular season or in training camp.
I think it was. I want to say it was before the season.
I think you're right. I'm going to look it up.
Game.
But I think it was in the preseason game. I think you're right, and I'm pretty sure the year before he did something to his arm or wrist or something.
Yeah, he hasn't really played a lot for the Canadiens since they traded for him.
I mean, this top 6 has a ton of potential. You have Slavkovsky, who is expected to take that huge step.
I love that first line. I love Suzuki, Caulfield,
so
Slavkovsky, and they're all locked up long term. Like they have a potential to be like a top 5 line in the league for like 7 or 8 years.
If they can just stay on the ice, I think that's going to be a top 10 first line in the league. I might be a little bit over dramatic with that, but
just a little,
just a tad. But the Canadiens blue line though is.
That's my more of a concern for the Canadiens. I'm not worried about them scoring goals. I think after trading for Patrik Laine, they have plenty of firepower on offense. I mean, they have some of the best goal scorers in the league on the team: Cole Caulfield, Laine, I think can be a top 10, top 15 goal scorer when he's healthy.
Yeah.
And in the right situation. He'll get a lot of power play time. It's just pick your poison. You want Caulfield on one side or Laine on the other side? Like, who are you worried about shooting the puck?
Exactly.
So, but, like, I'm more concerned about them keeping the puck out of their net because regardless of anything, Montreal's going to be a very fun team to watch this year. Still super young, but a lot of firepower.
Although, I do like their top 3 defensemen with Matheson, Gooley, and then Lane Hudson. I don't like David Savard. I don't mind Jack Guy. Jack Guy is going to be that physical guy who's going to scare opponents, and then Justin Barron's their third-line pair to play with Jack Guy.
Yeah, I feel like Matheson kind of came out of nowhere last year. He had a really great season for them.
A really great offensive defenseman, great puck mover.
Yeah.
He was great for the Canadiens. And with their goaltending, too, to pair with that blue line, it's not bad because you have Montembeault, you have... I know I'm going to butcher this because I butchered it when talking about the trade. Primu, however you pronounce it. Yes. He's good. He has potential to be a starting goaltender in this league. He had a .910 save percentage last season. He's looking to improve at that. I think he's going to be good for this team. Montembeault, on the other hand, is going to be a little iffy. He only had a .903 save percentage last season.
Yeah, but that team could not play defense to save their life.
Yeah.
That was their issue. Is like they were really fun to watch, but they couldn't keep the puck out of their damn net. Part of that's goaltending. Part of that's defensive structure.
Yes. And I was switching back to Kirby Dach here. Yeah, he only played 2 games last season. He had 2 assists.
Okay.
The year before, he played 58, had 14, and 24 for 38. So if he can get
He's still a really young player, too.
If he can get a full 70 to 75 games, and you're looking at a 60-point season potentially, maybe even more playing with a guy like Patrik Laine. Who knows?
I don't know. That's just weird, though, because you have 2 guys coming back that didn't really play much hockey last year. You know, obviously Kirby Dach tore his ACL. He ain't coming back from that.
Yeah.
In that season.
It takes like 2 seasons to fully recover in any sport.
Yeah, I would expect Dach to get off to probably a little bit of a slower start. I think this training camp's going to be big for him, you know, getting back in the swing of things. I'm sure he's been skating for a while, but, you know, getting into real game action is really where you're going to know if you're good or not because, you know, I think any athlete who sustained a major injury like I have, it takes a little while for you to feel normal again out there because you're always worried that you're going to injure it again and you don't want to take that risk. But, you know, typically like after my shoulder surgery, I was very hesitant for probably about a couple months, and then after that I felt normal again.
After you get your feet wet again, it's almost like okay, like
but a knee injury is very different.
A knee injury, because you can tweak.
Because that can affect, like you might not be able to walk because of that.
Exactly. Like you go into a corner again, your blade gets stuck in the ice, you toe pick, like you're out again.
Especially like after a torn ACL, like the chances of you tearing it again go way higher.
Exactly.
Like,
it's not like they can just put on a new ACL. They just take fat from or like tissue from other parts of your body to repair it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's come a long way. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember like 15, 20 years ago, a guy tore his ACL. He might be done for his career, especially like in the NFL with like running backs and stuff because they need to cut. And nowadays, you see guys like I think what was it like 2022, like the Rams went to the Super Bowl. Dude tore his ACL in preseason and came back in the playoffs.
And on top of it, Odell Beckham Jr. on that Rams team too was told in the middle of the season he had no ACL and he was going to tear it at any moment, and he tore it in the Super Bowl he played on it knowing that he could tear it at any second. Which
that's a little different though, because I mean, like that's a once in a lifetime opportunity to play.
I mean,
the biggest game of the world
through the season too with it. Like you like mentally that has to be so tough on you because you're like. You don't want to tear it, but you know it's going to happen.
But it also holds you back from being the best athlete you can be because you know I don't care what you say. It's always in the back of your head. Like you always like if I bend my knee if I put too much force on this, or I take this turn too hard, like I could just because I'm sure that he'll never forget that pain he felt like when he felt it tear. Because it probably like felt like he was getting stabbed in the back of the knee.
Like it's crazy too because it's not okay. I'm going to restate this because I don't want to say it's not the most excruciating pain. But a lot of times, I've never torn my ACL, but when a lot of people tear an Achilles or an ACL, it's almost like it catches them by surprise. They're like, they feel it, and then they're like, oh, shit. And then that's when it sets in. It's like more of a disgust that they're going to be out for 10 to 12 months.
I think it depends. Like, I think if in the heat of the moment, like your adrenaline's pumping, like it might take a minute for you to like really.
The next day, it's fucked.
Oh, you're not walking the next
Yeah.
day.
Oh,
it's gonna
for
be
sure.
like super swollen and puffy. Like you're not walking, but in the moment, like it takes a minute. Like sometimes guys feel it right away, and they like just go down. Like yeah, it's shot. And some guys like can just walk. Or, like they're acting like nothing happened, and they're like, they get to the locker rooms like, yeah, you tore your ACL.
Yeah, there's people that's like, well, there's people and players that will walk on the ACL and then they'll be like, okay, like everything's fine, and then the report comes back, yeah, this player tore his ACL.
That
Like, how did he
Von
walk?
Miller.
Right.
Yeah, like he thought he messed up his knee. They thought he sprained a completely different muscle in his knee. They just went to take a look at it, see how bad it was, and there's like a doctor was like, oh, you tore your ACL. Fuck.
Like the same thing with Aaron Rodgers on the opening night last year.
Well,
like,
that was obvious.
Well, no, it was obvious, but at the time though, like he got up walking, he was like feeling it out, and then he just sat on the ground.
Yeah,
and he was like,
I don't know how the hell he stood up,
dude. I know
his Achilles was gone.
Dude, it completely snapped.
I don't never. It was like pop. It was disgusting. I'll never forget that.
I remember when they showed it on the broadcast. I was like, dude, why? Like we have social media if we want to see that.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god, that was gross. But moving on to the second big trade, we have Yaroslav Askarov got traded to the San Jose Sharks, and they also got Nolan Burke and a 2025 third-round pick. And then going to Nashville, we have David Edstrom, Vegas's 2025 first-round pick. It's top 10 protected. And also Magnus Corona, and the San Jose Sharks will have the choice of either their pick or Vegas's if Vegas's somehow is in the top 10.
I love this trade for the Sharks. I love it. I think the writing was on the wall with Askarov when Saros signed that big extension, because Nashville had a decision to make. They were like, okay, we have Saros. We know what he is. He's a top 5 goalie, top 10, top 5 elite goalie in this league. He's getting older, but you know, goalies historically can play up until their late 30s at a usually high level, especially for elite goalies, as long as they can stay healthy. And you have what a lot of people in the league see as like one of the top goaltending prospects in Askarov. You sign Husso to that extension. Not Husso, what? Saros. Too many fins. And if Askarov's probably like, oh, I guess they don't want me, and he did ask for a trade. Because I can't imagine he was going to go back to the AHL. I don't think he needs to be in the AHL anymore. I think he's ready for the NHL, at least in a backup role. But if you're the Sharks, you're like, the Predators, why bother? You have your starting goaltender. Just get a veteran backup and say, yeah, you're just going to play in the American League for now.
Askarov in 2 games this season had a save percentage of almost .950. I think it was like .946.
I mean, we need more of a sample size in 2 games.
Of course, he's only played
it's impressive, but he was great in the AHL.
And I don't blame him for getting sick of it. I mean, he's not developing anymore playing in the AHL. He needs some extensive time in the NHL. He's going to get that with the San Jose Sharks.
Oh, yeah. You couldn't pick a better team to go to if you're a goalie that they're looking for a long-term starter goalie. San Jose is a perfect spot to land for him.
Listen, okay, there's a lot of people saying that Barry Trotz did Askarov dirty with this. No, he didn't. Okay, let me tell you why. The San Jose Sharks have one of the best futures in the entire league right now. On top of it, too, he's going to have a role where he's going to be the starter right away, or at least get extensive
he'll
ice
play
time
a lot.
right away.
I can see him playing 30 to 40 games.
There was something that came out that said Mike Greer said he will report to the AHL if needed to, and everybody's like, why won't he do that in Nashville? Because
he knows he has no shot in Nashville.
They just signed Saros to a 7-year extension. So, what the point is going to the AHL in Nashville if you have to in San Jose? You still have a clear path to the NHL in 2 months from then.
Yeah, those are 2 completely different situations. In San Jose, they traded the first-round pick for you. They clearly want you. They want you around in the organization. And I think Mike Greer probably had a talk with him. He's like, you're our guy. Because I don't... Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't really know their prospect pool well, but they didn't really have a high-end goalie prospect and that was the one thing they were really lacking. I think they've been doing a really good job the last couple of years building up that prospect pool. I still think they're a few years away from really competing in the NHL, but they're on the right track, definitely. But and especially if it's a situation where the Sharks are probably going to be really bad next year. Let's say it's a firestorm and. Vanacek's not a bad goalie, but any goalie is going to struggle with if the Sharks' defense is as bad as it was last year. I mean, they had 3 or 4 games they gave up more than 10 goals.
Yes,
and that's not all on the goalie.
No. And what's impressive, too, is that Mackenzie Blackwood his stats somehow were not that bad. I remember he started the season off, He had like a 900 save percentage, but like it goes against a 3.5. Like, this is why I measure a lot of goalie success on save percentage. You could be like, oh, 3.5 goals against average is horrible.
But look
It's
at the
so
team in front of you.
skewed.
If you're facing 30, 40 shots a night, that's going to play a
It's
factor
impressive.
into it.
If you're allowing 3 goals on 40 shots a night, 4 goals on 40 shots a night, that's impressive.
Especially when they're probably high danger chances. You're probably playing most of the game in your defensive zone. You're getting left out to dry because the Sharks were a bottom 5 defensive team last year, and I don't think they'll be that much better this year.
Oh my! They last season they had 19 wins. They had like 50 regulation losses. I think 56.
But if I'm San Jose, I'm not really worried about Askarov right now because you have Vanacek. He can start in the NHL. You're still not expected to be a great team next year. Like, it wouldn't shock me if they're a lottery team again, bottom 5, high ceiling. Maybe they get to like bottom 10. Like maybe they're like 9th worst team in the league.
Oh, I think they're going to be bottom 5.
They're still not going to be great next year. But, Askarov, like, you see that defense. They're struggling. Vanacek's struggling. He's playing as best as he can with that group around him. Why put him through that? Because especially with a young goalie, you don't want to mess his psyche up because, like, a lot of people will know it's not his fault, but the goalie will still want to make him saves. Like, you're losing every night. You feel like crap. Just go to the AHL. Just dominate. You can dominate. We'll get you up here when we're ready for you. There's no rush.
And I'd almost 100% assume that Mike Greer is going to have a talk with him if he hasn't already. With Mike Greer saying that he's going to report to the AHL if he needs to. I'm assuming he already had that talk with them.
Yeah, that was probably they probably called him as soon as he traded for him.
So for the Sharks, I love it. For Nashville side, I'm fine with the 2.
I think they did pretty. Getting a first-round pick for a goalie that you had no intentions of keeping on your team, I think that's pretty good.
It also could have been a thing, too, where it's like, I don't know how many teams the Sharks knew were in on Askarov. I'm assuming they knew he was like a high-quality product. But the Predators getting a first-round pick, like they could have had 7 other teams calling them, and it's like, we'll take the best deal available, and maybe that happened. Or maybe...
I mean, maybe Barry Trotz wanted to do a little bit right by Askarov, too, by sending him to a situation where he knew he had a good chance to succeed.
Yeah.
Because that seems like a Barry Trotz move to me. Like, he seems like that kind of guy is like, look, I want to get the best deal for the team, but I'm not going to screw you.
Could have sent him to a horrible situation for Askarov and the team he's getting sent to, as in Askarov's not going to have a ton of playing time available, and he's going to be on a team with a bad future, too, so it could have been that thing. But
yeah, I think this was a win-win for both teams, Nashville gets a first-round pick for a player they clearly didn't have in their future plans, and San Jose gets a potential franchise goalie.
I love this for both sides. The third trade, which we all knew Rutger mcgroarty was eventually going to get traded, but we just didn't know where. We didn't hear anything. Rutger, in a 1-for-1 deal, got traded to the Penguins, and coming back to Winnipeg is Brayden Yager, both 14th overall picks. 1 year, I think Rutger was a year after.
I think before.
Was it before? Okay, he was before Yager. For both sides, originally I was like, why are the Penguins doing this? But I know why now. Chris talked some sense into me. Other people talked some sense into me. The Penguins couldn't afford to wait for Yager for the next couple of years. I think he's 2 seasons away max. Well, minimum. Yeah, minimum. I think Rutger is kind of ready now, but
he'll be in the NHL this year.
Rutger also wants to be in that NHL. Signed his ELC right away, so the Penguins need somebody up in the top 6 that can produce. Rutger is going to be that guy. They have Crosby. We don't know what's going on with them. Only, I think, 1 year left on his deal.
They'll extend him. I'm not worried about that.
Exactly.
So he'll help. He's going to retire a Penguin.
They needed help, and they got the help they needed.
Yeah, no, it does make sense for the Pittsburgh. I mean, I think Rutger was the better prospect out of the 2. I mean, you never know what will happen with Yager. He just was drafted last year, I believe. So, he's still super young, 19, 20 years old. And for Winnipeg to get a top prospect back for a top prospect isn't bad for a guy that had no intention of being there. I think Winnipeg made out pretty good. And like you said, Pittsburgh gets a young guy because they need those young guys with the low salary caps because they're up against the cap, and they need young guys to contribute to their team. Frankly, they're not going to be competitive.
Right now, that's huge too. For the Penguins, there isn't too much to look into it, but Rutger can produce for this team right away. And I'm excited for the Jets side too because you're in a good enough situation where if you get Brayden Yager back, you can let him sit and
Yeah,
develop.
they don't need him in the NHL right
They don't
away.
need him right now. Their team's already good enough. They're probably going to put
Is
up
Yager
another
playing in juniors or is he in college?
I think juniors.
Okay.
Juniors. Yeah, he's not in college.
Did he already sign his ELC
Yeah,
though?
he signed his ELC when he was still with Pittsburgh, so he's good on that.
Okay.
So it was weird because he signed his ELC a few weeks ago. No, I think it was in July, like end of July.
Well, I mean, Pittsburgh probably didn't plan on trading him, but then they heard mcgroarty was available, and they're like, okay, let's talk about this. And I think it makes sense for Pittsburgh.
I love it. All right, so that's it for the trade talks. However, though, Matty Beniers signs a contract extension with Seattle, signs a 7x7.14 extension with the Kraken. And listen, okay, he's coming off a down year in his sophomore season. Did not really build up the hype from his rookie season, but he's looking to bounce back. And this is Seattle taking a complete chance with this player, saying, listen, what you did in your rookie year, great. You didn't really play great your sophomore season. However, though, nobody on Seattle played great.
No, they couldn't
except
score.
Joey Daccord, exactly. Offensively wise, they were not great. So he is going to be their center for the future, their number one center for the future. Him and Stevenson, their 1 and 2 punch, I think is great for Seattle. And to get this guy locked up now before he potentially has a breakout season this season, I think smart, because if he goes out and breaks out fully this season, you're looking at another $1.5 million paying this guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it always makes sense for a team to sign like a high-end prospect, like a high-end player, like Beniers to a long-term extension just as soon as you can.
Mm-hmm.
You know, get the cap hit lower and max out the years if possible. I'm sure they wanted to do 8. He probably didn't. It is what it is. It's a year.
Yeah.
But like 7.14, like I think Beniers will bounce back. I think bringing in like an actual like 2C and who can play 1C in a pinch and Stevenson will help a lot, take a little bit of pressure off of him because he was their number one center. He had to be. They didn't really have anybody else.
They couldn't go to anybody else.
Yeah, so I think Stevenson will help take some of that pressure off of him. You know, and I think he can learn a lot from him. Beniers can learn a lot from Stevenson. You know, but Stevenson was an integral piece of the Vegas Golden Knights. You know, big reason why they won their Stanley Cup. You know, I know they have Eichel and Marchessault, but Stevenson is I think a pretty underrated contributor to that team. You know, he came over. I think he's a 2-time Stanley Cup champion because he won with Washington too. Yeah, he came over to Vegas and he stepped in right away. Before they had Eichel, and when they got Eichel, he played 1C for them, and I thought he did a pretty good job for them.
Do you mind bringing up Seattle's projected lines real quick?
Yeah.
Because this is a team which I think is going to be underrated this season. I know I was super low on them going into this past season, and mightily so I thought they were going to take a step back, and they did. That's not me hating anything, and that's not me bragging that I was right. But I think this team, adding Stevenson, might be a little bit of an overpay. So what you needed a second-line center. And
no, they were desperate.
Oh, yeah.
And he was one of the better ones available on the market.
Like, are you going to go into the season with Yanni Gourde as your second-line center again? Like, you're not going to
they couldn't do that. Yanni Gourde's not a second-line center anymore.
No, he's not. And then with Brandon Montour, you bring him in, again, a little bit an overpay. But guess what, though? That's going to happen. You need to improve some lines in free agency, and you're going to...
Oh, this offseason was all about fixing the scoring issue.
I think they did do that, kind of. I think they are going to bounce back in a big way. Everybody, McCann and Eberle took setbacks from when they made it to the semifinals and almost made it to the conference.
Do not forget, they still have Shane Wright.
Yes, which in his limited time this past season actually did not play that bad. So hopefully Shane Wright can take on a full-time NHL role this season.
A lot of people forget they have Shane Wright still.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
He could end up being the 1C eventually.
Dude, do you know how nuts it would be if eventually you have Beniers, Stevenson, and then Shane Wright can take that step into a full-time NHL role? That's a good center core.
Yeah, because Shane Wright, I remember when they drafted him, like I was like, I can't believe Seattle. Like, they let him fall to Seattle. They got Beniers and Shane Wright. Like, they're set at center for like the next 15 years. You know, Shane Wright, a little bit of a slow development, but I still think he's going to be great.
Oh my! Like, give this kid a break. I don't want to. I'm not going to call him a bust until
he's not a bust,
him.
dude. No, he hasn't even played a full season in the NHL.
I know you have a huge gripe on people calling players busts after a couple
clickbait,
seasons.
man.
Yeah, but this team though, I'm looking to take a nice little step.
I
Get
still
a
think
little bit over 500.
I still think they're outside the playoff
Yeah.
bubble for me. You know, they could surprise people like they did a couple years ago, and maybe, you know, move into that, you know, crazily enough, move in that 3 spot in the Pacific. You know, Vegas and LA take a step back like we think they might.
That would be nuts. So I'm all here for if it's a 3-team race in the Pacific.
That very well could happen. I mean, right now I wouldn't until I see, you know, if Beniers is better and see how Stevenson fits on the team. I'm not ready to make that
Seattle's
that call.
my 5th team in the Pacific right now.
Yeah, but I mean, if there's a team that could compete with Vegas, and because I think Vegas is going to take a step back next year, and I think LA will take a little bit of a step back. You know, I'm not saying they're bad or anything, and they still might. They both end up making the playoffs still. I mean, someone's got to be that 3 spot in the Pacific because, I mean, you got the Oilers and the Canucks that are probably going to be that 1 and 2 spot.
They're going to run away with it. It's going to be them two at the top easily, unless something catastrophic happens. Yeah, it's with Seattle. The difference between Seattle and LA and Vegas is that those two teams have firepower. Seattle doesn't really have as much firepower as Vegas and LA.
I mean, I like Jared McCann. I think he's a pretty underrated scorer.
He'll give you 25 goals this season.
Yeah, no.
But for your first line left wing, though, like you're looking for 30.
I believe he's had more than 30 goals.
Did he last season?
I mean, does his website not have freaking stats?
No. I'm going to look up Jared McCann's stats because I know a couple seasons ago he played absolutely.
Oh, yeah, he was like my fantasy darling. I think he had 40
was so
goals.
good. Yeah, he did. Him and Eberle played out of their minds.
That was the year they like.
So last season.
He had a good season last year.
Yeah, last season he had 29, 33, 62.
Yeah, no, he's a good player. I mean, I think Beniers taking a little bit of a step back kind of
hurt them.
Hurt him. McCann's a pure shooter.
McCann can put the puck in the back of the
net.
And, like, this team is kind of going to rest on Matty Beniers in a way. If Jared McCann and Eberle can put the puck in the back of the net, you need Beniers to.
I mean, Eberle's starting to show his age a little bit.
Yes.
He's looking a little slower. Yeah.
Yeah, so I like their top 6, though. Jaden Schwartz, Stevenson, Burakovsky as their second line.
I think Bjorkstrand's a pretty underrated third liner, too. I think he's
a great
scoring
middle 6
upside.
guy.
Yeah, I like Eli Tovlinen, too. I think he's a good player, too. But don't forget about Shane Wright. Just don't forget about him.
Shane Wright breakout season incoming.
I think he'll be on the team full time this year.
Oh, I would love that.
I think they need him to be.
There's no choice at this point.
Yeah.
If we see Shane Wright move up the depth chart by November, December,
I can't see him starting the season on the 4th line with freaking Brandon Tanev.
No, you're setting him up for failure at that point.
Like I like Tanev, he's good at what he does, but he should not be on a line with Shane Wright.
If Yanni Gord started on the 4th line, I would be more than happy.
Yeah, you need to put Shane Wright with someone who can
throwing Shane Wright with Eli Tolvanen and Bjorkstrand is fine to start the season.
Yeah, no, I can't see him playing because we're looking at the daily face-off. They have their projected lineups, and we know it's August, and there's not really any merit to this. It's just based on the lineups, what they think they're going to do. And they have Shane Wright on the 4th line with Ty Carte and Brandon Tanev. I don't see that happening.
Who I forgot Brandon Tanev was still in the league low-key.
Yeah, I mean, I think his moment of fame was that his player picture.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see Shane Wright going in the top 6. The top 6 fine. So 3rd line for me for Shane Wright I think is great. Switch Gordon Wright, and I think you have it all. Their defense, I'm going to go a little bit over their defense before we end things off here. Vince Dunn, Adam Larson, I think that's a good top pairing. You add Brandon Montour, I think is great, but then their bottom 3 guys I don't think's that great. Jamie
Alexiak's freaking gigantic.
Huge pause. I think he's all right. And then your 3rd pairing with Will Borgen and Evans, I think, is just a filler.
I could see Montour sliding up to maybe that top pair with Dunn when they need a goal really bad.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, Montour's going to be that power play quarterback, though, for sure.
You know what?
They brought him in for his offense.
I do like their top 2 power play guys in Vince Dunn and Brandon Montour.
Oh, that's solid. I mean,
good.
Looking at their projected power play 1, I don't have any issues with it. I mean, and then see, this is how it's BS because they have Shane Wright on their 4th line here, and then on the second power play line they have Shane Wright centering the second power play. Why would you have a guy on the 4th line and the second power play?
Exactly, it makes no sense.
Yeah.
Make it make sense, guys. I want to know what I am excited for is Zoe Decord.
Yeah.
He played good for them down the stretch last season.
I think he's better than Grubauer.
Yeah, and you know what? That's true. That's competition right now. Grubauer had his good season when they made it to the semifinals in the playoffs. So
he was really great in the playoffs.
He was really good. Stole them some games too. took them to 7 games at Dallas, I believe it was.
Yeah, I mean, he also helped them upset Colorado against his old team.
Yeah.
Had a little fire in him. He's like, you guys let me go, and then you win a cup. Fuck you. He's like, they don't take the cup away if you beat us, right? It's like, fuck you.
You know what is nice, though? Actually getting a chance to talk about other teams besides the same, 12 teams we're talking about.
I feel like we haven't talked about Seattle in,
it feels like it's been
4 or 5 months. We never talk about them. We probably mentioned them a little bit in free agency when we did our recap, but...
I mean, I feel like the last time we legitimately talked about Seattle was our Seattle team preview last season.
Maybe in depth.
Yes.
Yeah, but...
This team is going to be underrated. I think they're going to go into the season with the chip on their shoulder.
They're definitely not bad. I mean, we'll see. I mean, we got to see how they go starting in this season.
I'm excited to talk about the Pacific Division come team previews in about 3
That's
or 4
a
weeks.
very interesting division.
It is going to be intriguing.
Yeah.
So next week we start our previews, correct? Yeah, I believe we do.
Yeah. What order are we going? Are we starting with East, West, or
you want to go Atlantic, Metro, Central, Pacific?
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, sick.
I'm sick of talking about the Atlantic Division. I feel like we've talked about that division more than any other division this offseason.
It feels like we talk so much more about the East and the West, and it's not even close.
Well, there's way more drama in the East.
The East media is nuts compared to the West.
I mean, the West, you got Edmonton and Vancouver. I feel like we've talked a good amount about East, Buffalo, Boston, Toronto, Ottawa.
There's
Montreal.
14 teams we talk about constantly in the East, and the West is 4 teams max. So I'm excited to get in depth with the Western Conference.
Yeah, I feel like we don't show the Western. I know we're on the East Coast. We might be a little bit biased towards talking about the Eastern Conference because we see it a lot more.
Because we're not going to be up until 1 a.m. when we have to work at 10 o'clock in the morning to watch Western Conference games. So
yeah, no, I typically don't watch them. No.
Yeah, so I'm going to try it too this season, but we'll see though on my work schedule and everything. That's going to end it for today's episode. If you guys enjoyed all of our content on YouTube, subscribe, notification bell if you guys stayed for the end. If you guys are on Spotify and Apple, head over to our YouTube. Links down in the description below. Subscribe there. Follow our Instagram. Join our Discord to talk hockey 24/7 and other sports as well. We'll see you guys in our next video.